Hey everybody, today I want to share with you some of the lessons that I learned from this season's annual containers. Every year we plant up different pots and containers and baskets, and every year there are plenty of lessons to be learned. Sometimes I learn the same lesson over and over again because I make the same mistake year after year. This time I'm going to use some reference points, like this is the first year that we had our big giant driveway pots, and so those all are about 32 inches, and it's the first time we've done such large pots like this in kind of these conditions, so lots of lessons learned there. This is also the first time that I fully committed to AQUAPOTS, and lots of things that I learned there. And then I also, just in my home baskets and containers, there were a lot of things that I kind of picked up that I just, every year learn a little something new. So I'm going to start right here in the driveway because there's a lot of things to talk about here. Lesson number one, sometimes less is more. Because we had these giant containers to fill, we kind of fooled ourselves into thinking that we could put as many plants in here as we wanted to, and we definitely overpacked these. So we can't even see some of the varieties that we had in there, and we also underestimated the vigor of some of them. So like this black-eyed Susan vine is called Coconut Appeal. It is so vigorous that it is overtaking the Supertunia Mini Vista Yellow. Any plant that can overtake a Supertunia Vista has got to be super vigorous. Now, they still look great, but I think we'd be able to appreciate each variety a little bit more, and we'd probably be seeing a little bit more color from that petunia if we had fewer plants in there. Did kind of the same thing. I still like how this one looks. It's loaded full of really beautiful plants, but it's just kind of overflowing at this point. And I think if we had a little bit less, we'd be able to really enjoy them a little bit more. Lesson number two, bigger is better. If you've been watching my videos, you may recognize this container. This basket was in the, Size Matters and the How Many Plants video. And in those videos, I revealed there are only 2 Supertunia Vista Silverberry petunias in this basket. 2 petunias, 1 basket. Now, to achieve this, we had to put it in a big container because it started out in this 12-inch basket, something just like this, and it would never have reached this size in this size of container. When we bumped it up, we made sure that basket had lots of room for the roots to develop, because that's where all the nutrients come in, and it's able to then, as we fertilize it, take up more nutrients and reward us with this huge vigor. I mean, this plant, even since I showed it to you last, I think it's grown at least 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet since then. It just won't stop. It's been absolutely incredible, and I absolutely love it. But I want to remind you that we also did use a very vigorous plant. So this is a Supertunia Vista. It's one of the biggest petunias out there. You need plants like that, or a Color Rush, or a Wave, or even Super Cal Premium, something like that. Those plants that are kind of bred for vigor and lots of flower in order to get this kind of show. So hey, if you want bigger is better, you got to think large pot, large plant. Lesson number 3. AQUAPOTS are a game changer. Now, I've planted in AQUAPOTS before, and I've had good success with them, but I never really committed to it. I always had them kind of close to a hose. I kind of watered them like I did my normal pots, and then only when I was going to basically neglect them would I actually use the self-watering feature of the AQUAPOT. This year, went full guns with it. First example is going to be this one here. This is one Vermillionaire cuphea in this pot. Now, I've grown this plant many times before, and I've always thought of it as more of kind of this drought tolerant, easy care plant. Hummingbirds love it. But I didn't realize that by giving it as much water as it wants, it's going to just grow as big as it wants. I've never seen one get so absolutely huge and gorgeous. The leaves are really thick and lush. It's fantastic, and I credit fully the AQUAPOT for this. I would never be giving this enough water for it to be able to be, I think, growing to this point, because I've never managed it before. So it's absolutely incredible, and I just can't believe it. Now, to show my commitment to the AQUAPOTS even more, I have 3 AQUAPOTS down at the end of the driveway. One of them I had planted in the video. So if you want to watch that video, you can see how I planted it up. Those things are doing great. And the reason why that's significant is because down at the end of the driveway, there is not easy access to water. So even if we did notice the plant struggling, which we could easily miss down there, we might not get water down there right away, because to do that, we have to fill buckets, put them on a wagon, and haul them down. We couldn't do that with just regular pots, because having to do that every day or every other day in the summer, not gonna happen. And in them we have petunias, begonias, coleus, a couple other plants as well. For fertilizing, a lot of people say you can put the time release pellets in there, and that will feed them. But I just found that I just use my Miracle Grow water. I use that water. At first I started diluting it. I would only use like 1/3 of the recipe that I would normally use every week and put that in there. And I thought, I'm going to try it with just, like full strength or just a little bit diluted. Look great. So that's how I'm fertilizing them now. I started out with the pellets and I just thought, well, let me just put them on the regular schedule. That way I know exactly how much, because I felt like with the pellets, I couldn't keep track of how much fertilizer was in there. Whereas when I'm using my regular Miracle-Gro water, I kind of know exactly what's going on. So I have to say I am going to be using more AQUAPOTS in the future. Lesson number 4, drought tolerance comes at a price. So we filled this container full of plants that are labeled drought tolerant, and then we push them to the limit. So we went 5 days without water, 7 days without water. We even reached 10 days without water, and the plants were just then starting to show signs of stress. And it was great to see them last that long, but it did come at a price, because when those drought tolerant plants are put under those conditions, they tend to sacrifice flowers. So we didn't get all the color and all the brightness, but as soon as we reintroduced the water, then they just came right back to life. So we did that right up until about mid-July, and then after that, we've been making sure that they get watered once a week, and then we do check it in between, and I think only once or twice have we had to give it supplemental water. And when we water it that once a week, that's when we're giving it its fertilizer as well. So they're benefiting from that fertilizer, but they don't require very much water at all. And in here we have some salvia, scaevola, begonia, verbena, geranium, lantana, and all of them are doing very well. Now I think some of them would probably do a little better if we were giving them a little bit more water, but all things considered, this is quite a container for how little water that we give it. Lesson number 5, trust your eyes, not the plant tag. And for someone who did a whole video all about how plant tags lie, you think I would have known better, but I saw this canna called Canna Nova Mango, and then this dahlia called Venti Mango, and I thought, oh, deep down, I just want these mangoes to match and look beautiful together and live happily ever after. And I put them together, and well, this is a very orange mango, and that is a very coral mango, and well, they wouldn't be colors that I probably would have put together if I would have paid closer attention. But I'm going to live with it. Still looks okay. But that's the case with plants. Horticultural color names versus what the average person would use to name colors can be very different. And then another layer is the marketing department often, I think, comes up with names. And I think marketing and horticultural worlds are intentionally naming plants things that are, going to get each other angry at each other, because like horticulturalists, their blue is actually what we call purple. Purple is more of a magenta. Magenta can be like hot pink or fuchsia. It can get pretty confusing. So don't trust those plant tags, and don't trust the photos either, because cameras capture light and interpret color. Each device does it differently. And then when you transfer that onto print or into a digital screen, that's another generation where things can kind of change up. So, you're just never going to know until you see it. So you either have to see it to believe it, or you just need to live with the results, as I am with this one. And you know what? I've come to terms with it. I love it. And my final tip is we play a really important role in the success of our plants and in helping them reach their full potential. So it's important that we're putting our plants in the right kind of sunlight, we're giving them the right amount of water, and that we're giving them fertilizer. And I have to say, fertilizer has been kind of the key factor in us getting these really robust baskets, getting these petunias to get to super size. And I did a whole video on that. So if you're curious how we do it, go ahead and watch that. And it's just been really a lot of fun to be able to kind of experiment with these. I will say that by putting these in the bigger pots and in the AQUAPOTS, they haven't needed as much attention, but that has a downside, because it means that we completely neglected them and we weren't actually looking at them very closely. They just always look good, so we never paid attention. And probably about 3 weeks ago, a lot of these could have used a little bit of a cleanup, because I notice now a lot of the petunias, like if I flip them up, because the canopy is so dense between the petunias and the other plants in there, there's no light getting in there. So a lot of the undersides are kind of dying out. It still looks good and it's fine, but it also means that there's not any air movement going through there. So there's kind of some like mildewy stuff, and kind of, it just, it's not very attractive on the underside. Nobody sees that, but I think if we had cleaned them up, there'd be more airflow in there, and it probably would be better for the plants, because I did have to trim out some of the petunias because the underside was kind of just getting messy and stuff like that. So, I wish I would have paid a little more attention to it, but then at the same time, The great thing was that we didn't have to. They still look great, but at this point, they're kind of starting to wind down, and I think they would have been a little better if we would have paid a little more attention. But hey, I am not complaining. These containers have been great. It's been great sharing these tips with you. Thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. We were kind of fooling ourselves into thinking we could load it full of plants. Well, hey, look who's here. This little squirrel is talking to me. He's crazy. Hey, guy. Hey. You're not afraid of me at all, are you? You're not. I don't know what you're saying. Plants are doing fine. Look who's here visiting. Hey, hey, hey.